Hello! We have 35 minutes. I will use the time to show you what does it feel to use Defold in a daily life. And let's get started immediately. We start from starting a new project. So this is a Defold dashboard. We start a new project, we type the project name. Actually, that works best for the description, and yeah, the name will be the project, obviously. So we'll start from the blank state, and that's the dashboard. That's where we can add new members. So if it was a live meeting, I would have typed name, surname @king.com. So let's start Defold. And right, so we can start from new project, empty project, mobile project, samples, tutorials, lots of stuffs. But let's start with the project we just created. The project created a minute ago, yeah, import. It's importing, it has some basic stuffs. That's the main project file with the settings. Starting scene collection. That's the awesome default logo that we're gonna remove in a second, and these are the built-ins. But let's start from removing the unnecessary, for this training, the logo of Defold. We've removed that from our main collection, which is the starting scene, or whatever you like it. Right, so what do we do now? We need to add some art, some assets. That's what I'm doing. So let's create a new folder called assets, and I prepared some assets, basically some art for the demo. So let's add some tiles. These are just regular tiles, just some art that I have for this training, and let's just drag and drop it to the editor. So here we go. The PNG files are in the scene, and we cannot use them. We have to create a tile source in order to build the level. That's what I'm doing now. I am now building a level. Let's point to the tile that we're gonna use. As you see, the sizes of the tiles is incorrect, so we need to adjust the tile width and height. Let me do it now. It's 70 should work. All right, so these are the tiles, and we'll extrude borders by 2 pixels just so the edges are a bit look a bit better, so we don't see. Yeah, that looks good. This looks good. This looks good. Let's save. And now, in order to use the tile source, we need a tile map. Let's call it a level. Or level 1, that's even better, because we're gonna plan, maybe more levels. Let's point to the tile source that we have just created. Everything else is correct. So layer 1. Now we can paint our level. So let's pick some basic structure. Yeah, we're drawing something. I'm the worst ever level creator, you'll just see. Now what I've done, I've created a bigger brush. Let's create a new bigger brush. So we can paint tile by tile, but it makes much more sense to paint in a bigger brush, so we can create our. So I am able to create the ugliest level possible faster. I am not level designer, and you see that. So that's the stuff for our level. Let's prettify it just a bit. So I'm taking a new source for my tile. Yeah, so let me be, yeah, so let's do it like that. And let's paint it here. Let's take a bigger brush and one, and Yeah, I mean, we have to jump somewhere and somehow, right? I'm creating a kind of arcade game here. Righty, and the last thing that will do. That's a short level, but that will do for now. Maybe or maybe not. I'm a bit involved at this point. So we have that basic thingy. It looks, you could do better. You could do better. I know, and you'll be able to as soon as we end this training. So right. And now we go to the main collection, and that's the collection that we're loading as the game starts. And we'll create a game object right here on the sim, and we'll call it a level. Now we'll point to a file with our tile map. Here we go. Save, and we can build it. Bingo! That's how our game would look like right now. So what we do, with two monitors this could have been much better and easier, but what I'm doing, I'm editing the collection in the editor, saving, reloading, and I see immediate changes on the client. If I was developing on a mobile, I would have seen the changes right on my mobile device. But it's hard to shoot that, so maybe I'll show it later on in the next training, in the training that you can ask me to do for you. Right, so okay, it looks good. What we're gonna do now is that we're gonna commit. Look at all the stuff that we have in the changed files part. So since Defold integrated with Git and King's Git as well, so let's stage what we've created. Initial commit, that's valid. Committed, and boom, it all went up to the server. And let's refresh to see in the dashboard. Yay, initial commit, it's in the dashboard, so all the team members can see that. And you could have seen that if I had added your emails. Right, so now it's time to add a player. In order to add a player, we need, well, some art for that. Let's just do it. So I'm adding some art I've prepared for my player, some PNGs as you see. But in order for us to be able to use it, we need an atlas. So let's create an atlas, and we call it player. Now let's add new animation groups. Let's call this one player idle. We need 30 FPS. And let's add some art to the animation group. Player front. That's good for the idle animation. New animation group. We call it player and run. 30 FPS, and then we add some art. And player. Yeah, so this walk animations should work. And now we need one more animation group for the art that I prepared. We call it player jump. Jump is what we're missing. Or 30 FPS and some art player. Yeah, jump. Good. Then yeah, settings looks correct. Then we save, and then we implement it in the scene in our game. So let's create a game object, and we call it a player. So we have game object for the player in the scene, And right now for this game object we'll create a component sprite, and we'll point to our player atlas that we have just created, and let's let default animation, let's actually, yeah, so that's the default animation that is idle, but let's see, for example, how the run animation looks like. So that's the run animation. Imagine, remember there was animation with multiple frames, so that's how it looks. That's a nice way to preview it. But idle is what we want, so save, and now let's add it to the scene. So that's our player. That's our player. Let's put it to the scene. Good, so that's the starting position. We build, and oh no, look, it's beyond the screen borders on our starting position. What we're gonna do? We could have played this just in the editor, but with 2 monitors, or a mobile device, it would have been better. But just for the sake of demo, I will reposition the player in the editor. Command R. Now we see the changes right in the client. So the editor streams the changes in the client, be it a standalone or mobile. Yeah, so let's get back. We now have the player positioned in the scene the way we like, but it is all static. So let's see what we can do. Oh, we can actually add physics. We add a component called collision object, and we need a collision shape. Sphere, it's a good shape. Let's position this sphere right for our purposes. That should do. That should do. So that's the part of our player that would collide and react with other physical objects in the demo. We can add more shapes to cover the head, but yeah. Let's do it. Let's do it. Position. Fine. Fine. Collision type. It's dynamic, and let's see how it works. Let's just build and see how it works. So it falls through the ground. Why is that? Oh, because our level doesn't have physics element, and the type for the collision of the player is dynamic, so the player listens to the physics in the game and the ground does not. Let's fix that. So collision in the collision source will point to the same tiles, and now we can actually, oh, let's by the way rename it to ground. Good. So these are our tiles, and let's mark the tiles that we call a ground, so we can have different collision objects of different type. We can collide with ground, we can collide with say we can have collectibles in the game when we want different kinds of collision. So good, we marked our ground, and look what happens. What happens? What can happen? Correct, nothing. Well, nothing in terms of the player did not collide with the ground, because the level needs a collision object as well. So let's create a collision object for the level. Fine, we'll point to the tile map with the collision, and we change the type to static. So now let's set what collides with what. The level is a ground, so that's a ground, and it's gonna collide with the player and the enemy. So game object with the collisions of player and enemy would be able to walk on the ground, and this is a player, and it's gonna collide with the ground, or gonna react to the ground. Fine. So drum roll, drum roll, drum roll. Let's build it. It works. It works. It works. Now let's see what actually is happening. There is a nice checkbox. Yeah, let's set it to my awesome project actually. That's because it's becoming more and more awesome. So where is our checkbox that I wanted to show you? That's the one. Let's build and see. Oh, it's green and pink and beautiful. Watch what is happening. Right. You see the physical forces. So that's the best way to see the physical forces in the game. That's a physics debug checkbox. We don't need it right now. What is missing in our game? What is missing in our game? Oh, so let's change the player type to kinematic, because we're gonna move it from the script. And now I guess it's time to add some input binding. To add logic, the space is jump. And also, since we're making a cross-platform game, the mouse button 1, which is also translated to a touch, is also jump. Good. So we react to touch and to mouse, and we have a jump on the keyboard. So now it's time to add logic, and I have a game prepared, and let's steal script from the player script. So let's just drag it and drop. So that's a Lua script. The Lua is the language that we use. Let's point to the script. Good. In our game object. Fine. So that is it. We've just added a script from some game, and before we do something, let's push it up. Pull. Push. Now stage the changed files. You see changed files in the left of your screen. Player physics. That's what we've done. Right, input. Okay, and it goes to the cloud. Let's verify it when there. So look, our second command, many good things, is there. Fine, our script. So that's how the script that we have added looks like. We run it and error. Look, something is missing. I mean, this is a stage drama. And the reason something is missing is that I've added a script for the platformer kind of game, and this script utilizes Defold's platformer engine. So we have a platformer engine that is kind of built in. Defold Asset Portal is a way to add these pre-built pieces of functionality. So we have a platformer engine here, we have samples project here, we have code by Defold team, code by indie teams who use Defold, and some King assets are here as well. But right now we need our platformer engine that is called Platypus. How to use this in our project? So we click, and then there is a copy library URL. Well, that's fine. Let's go to our game project and add a dependency. Command V. Fine. The platformer functionality has been just added to our game. Our game has now platformer engine. We will also need a camera, orthographic camera, that is suited much better for the kind of game that we're creating. There is a manual how to use it, so there are many things to, yeah, let's add it. There are many things to adjust in that camera and to tune it and to set it up. And it is hosted on GitHub, just as pretty much all of the other extensions on the accessories created by Bjorn Ritzel, a member of the Defold team, of the awesome Defold team. Repositories, and I'm looking for a bit of functionality called Ludo Beats. Let's click on it. It has right, so we need a link to a zip file, and that's how we do it. This is just how we do it. So in order to use what we've just added to the project, we need to fetch dependencies, so that's what I do. I click fetch dependencies and bingo, look! We have platypus, and that's a Lua file. We have a camera with the camera scripts, camera game object, and the render. We'll touch that later a little bit. That's also just functionality that we're gonna use. Let's build, and yeah, so we have bugs, and let's fix it. It's called enable player walk. Why is that? It's because let's see the player atlas. That's where we set up our animations. Player run, and the script references to player walk, so let's change it to player walk and run, and we have another problem. The problem is that we forgot to save. Look, there is an asterisk. So we save and we build, and look, the game is still kind of buggy. We'll fix that, and that's the joy of using Defold. But let's start from. So it tries to play sounds. We won't be implementing sounds today, so let's just comment out the lines of code that try to play sound. So this is the one line, and the next line, and yep, one more line to comment out. That is it. Correct. And now I will be showing something that I and the rest of the Defold team are very proud of. This is probably unique functionality to Defold. Now imagine we wanted to tweak something that was in the middle of the level, say, that required you to play for 5-10 minutes. Imagine the day where you have to tweak something that is 5 minutes into the level. See how we do it in Defold. With the 2 monitors, it would have been much easier, or with the device by the hand, but let's do it in the creepy way to fit everything on a single monitor. This is our player script, and we will use this code that puts the player to a starting position, and we'll place it here. This is a very special function called onReload. Whenever I reload the script, and you do remember like few minutes ago when I was doing exactly this split screen thingy, I'm doing this again, so we can modify art or scene setup in the editor and stream it into the game. We can do the exactly same with the code. So this onReload button allows to alter what is happening only when we reload. And that's how it works in our case. Each time we trigger onReload, the player returns to the starting position. Now let's tweak our numbers, running speed. Let's reduce it 5 times. So 100 onReload, and now the player is slower. It's good enough, I think, probably. See what happens with the jump. He jumps high. Maybe let's reduce the power, say to 500. Let's try it. Let's try it. Reload, save and reload, and now our player is no more a jumper. Let's leave it at 1000. Better. Yep. That's better. That's the onReload function, and it's so cool, it's so powerful, you can do so many things with it. So we've tweaked our player, it runs and jumps in an okay-ish way, but it runs outside of the screen, so what we're gonna do, we're gonna add camera. Let's add the camera game object to the scene. It has a script. It is a mix of OpenGL and Lua code, or Lua mangled OpenGL code, or OpenGL code that looks like Lua. You decide. The important part is that we will now set Defold to use that totally new rendering. We will go to project settings and change the renderer to the orthographical one. And okay, our script, get position for the player. Okay, all looks good. And that's our camera script. Okay, it has some logic. We won't go into that logic right now, but you can book a training and then we will. Deal? So let's build, and it's suboptimal. The camera kind of follows the player, but not in the optimal way, so let's just go and fix it. Where is our camera? Okay, let's just move the transform just a bit. Like this. Build. Look, it's better now. The camera follows the player. It's still not optimal. Probably we could tweak it so it looks better and is much more fun. But this is your job as a game developer, to make games fun. I mean, like seriously, we're doing games from morning to evening. This process has to be fun. And we at Defold care a lot about your experience with Defold, that there is no frustration, that everything works as expected. And yeah, I mean, I can talk a lot about this. Let's focus on the game.